The stars burned red and broken around the dying system of Vornes. The light from the collapsing sun cast a deep crimson glow over thousands of alien ships that hung shattered and scattered across the void. The once proud Zerkai Dominion fleet was in ruins. Wrecked hulls drifted like corpses, their power cores flickering weakly. In the center of the chaos, the flagship Spear of Silence tried to hold formation, its command bridge filled with panic and smoke. Admiral Korvac, commander of the Zerkai Armada, stood tall despite the trembling of his ship. His deep violet skin was streaked with dust, and his 4 eyes reflected the trembling light of distant explosions. He looked down at the glowing display in front of him, watching as thousands of red markers vanished from the tactical screen. Each blink was another Zerkai ship destroyed. He gritted his teeth and slammed a clawed fist against the control panel. "Where are they?" he demanded. His voice echoed across the bridge. "Where are the reinforcements?" No one answered. The only sound was the hum of damaged engines and the faint, hopeless chatter of broken communication links. A young officer turned in her seat, trembling. "Admiral, long-range sensors are detecting new signatures. Massive ones." Korvac narrowed his eyes. "What species?" Her voice shook. "Unknown. But fast. Too fast." The admiral leaned forward. His crew watched as lines of bright white light appeared on the edge of the system. Space itself seemed to ripple and tear open. The air grew still. Then, one by one, dark metallic shapes emerged from the rippling void, enormous ships, sleek and angular, each one glowing faintly with cold blue energy. They moved in perfect formation, no wasted motion, no hesitation. The humans had arrived. No one on the Zerkai bridge spoke for several seconds. The silence was heavy. Then someone whispered, "They're smaller than our dreadnoughts." Korvac stared at the approaching formation. "It doesn't matter," he said, forcing confidence into his tone. "They've come to die." He turned to his weapons officer. "Target the lead vessels. Fire everything we have left." The Zerkai fleet obeyed. Dozens of heavy plasma cannons charged at once, lighting up the red dust around the dying star. Great lances of energy roared through the void, tearing across space toward the humans. The firepower could destroy moons. But the humans didn't even dodge. The human armada shifted formation just slightly, enough that the Zerkai shots hit nothing but decoy drones. The massive alien fleet's strongest weapons vanished into empty space. And then, before the Zerkai could adjust, the humans fired back. It wasn't like anything the galaxy had seen before. The first human volley didn't glow or roar. It flashed. White light filled every sensor screen, followed by silence. A second later, half of the Zerkai ships were gone. Not damaged. Gone. Reduced to dust and plasma trails. "Admiral," cried the officer beside him. "We've lost the second wing. Third wing is unresponsive." Korvac couldn't understand it. How? How are they doing this? Their energy output. He stopped when the human flagship came into view. It dwarfed even the Zerkai's largest carrier. Its name was written in bold white letters across its hull, UNSC Armageddon. The admiral stared at it, a chill running through his body. He whispered, almost to himself, "Armageddon. What does that mean?" A voice broke through the comms, not Zerkai, not machine. Human. Calm. Cold. "This is Admiral Mira Holt of the United Nations Space Command. You invaded human colonies. You slaughtered civilians. You will receive no surrender terms." There was no anger in her tone, only certainty. The Zerkai tried to respond, to plead, but the signal cut off. And then the Armageddon fired its main cannon. It was not a beam. It was not a missile. It was a storm of pure energy that stretched across space, breaking apart everything it touched. Korvac's ship shook violently. The bridge lights flickered out. When power returned, the view outside the viewport made him stagger. The battlefield was gone. Nothing remained but drifting ash and debris. Thousands of ships, his entire armada, destroyed in seconds. The comms filled with static, then with faint human voices. "Sector clear. Proceeding to cleanup operations. Confirming no survivors. Armageddon fleet moving to next objective." Korvac fell to his knees. His hands trembled. His empire had been built over centuries, crushing species after species, always believing the Zerkai were the peak of power. And yet, in less than a minute, humans had wiped them from the stars. He looked up through the cracked viewport at the fleet moving silently across the red glow of the dying sun. They were beautiful in a terrifying way, machines built for one purpose, to end wars before they began. As the energy core of his ship began to fail, he whispered to himself, "What are they?" The explosion took him before he heard the answer. Across the system, the human ships reformed into tight lines and began scanning for survivors. They found none. The Battle of Vornes was over before it had even begun. On the bridge of the Armageddon, Admiral Mira Holt watched the data scrolling on her screen. Her face was calm, unreadable. Around her, officers worked in silence, efficient and focused. "Report," she said quietly. "Enemy fleet destroyed," replied her tactical officer. "0 human casualties. All systems stable." She nodded once. "Good. Send word to command. The Zerkai Dominion has fallen." As the Armada turned away from the dying star, the humans didn't cheer. There was no celebration. Just purpose. In the dark silence of space, their engines flared, and the fleet jumped to the next system, leaving behind only the wreckage of a civilization that had thought itself untouchable. That was the day the galaxy learned the truth about humanity. They didn't fight wars. They ended them. The Galactic Council chamber floated in the heart of the great station Astra Prime, a massive citadel orbiting the twin suns of the Concordant system. Thousands of alien representatives gathered there, creatures of scale, fur, crystal, and energy, all whispering, debating, and laughing in the soft hum of politics. For them, war was something that happened far away, to lesser species. The fall of the Zerkai Dominion was, to most of them, a distant tragedy. Admiral Zenler of the Oltari stood near the central podium, his silver scales catching the bright light of the chamber. His eyes burned with worry. He had seen the footage. He had watched the human armada move with terrifying precision, annihilating one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy in seconds. And what haunted him most wasn't the destruction itself, it was the silence that followed. No demands, no conquest, no boasts. Just silence, and then departure. He raised his voice, sharp and strong, echoing across the hall. "Members of the council, you must listen. The humans are not what you think they are. The Zerkai were not destroyed by luck or by numbers. They were outthought, outmaneuvered, and outmatched. The humans predicted everything." A murmur rippled through the room. Some representatives leaned forward. Others smirked. From the high dais, Councillor Vern of the Cyrillans, a tall, translucent being who shimmered like glass, tilted her head. "You speak as though these primitives from a backwater world are gods, Admiral. They only recently joined the interstellar stage. Their technology is decades behind ours." Zenler's claws scraped against the metal floor. "And yet they used it to destroy a fleet 10 times larger than their own. Does that not trouble you?" A deep, rumbling laugh came from one corner of the chamber. A massive creature, covered in bone plates and breathing steam, rose to his full height. "The Zerkai were arrogant," growled High Warlord Drask of the Craver Dominion. "They always underestimated their enemies. Perhaps these humans got lucky. It happens." "Luck?" Zenler repeated softly. "You call it luck when every move, every formation, every timing was perfect? When they attacked from 6 vectors at once? When they arrived hours before the Zerkai even expected them? No, Warlord. That is not luck. That is design." Drask snorted. "So what do you suggest? That we bow to them? Surrender the galaxy to your new human gods?" Zenler stepped closer to the center of the platform. "No. I suggest we study them. Understand them. Negotiate with them before we provoke something we cannot control." The laughter returned, soft this time, mocking, echoing through the hall. Councillor Vern smiled, her glassy skin shimmering in amusement. "Admiral, you forget yourself. The Council rules by reason, not fear. Humanity will be addressed through normal diplomatic channels. If they refuse to cooperate, then perhaps they will learn their place." A chill passed through Zenler. "And if they do not?" Vern's smile widened. "Then they will face consequences, as all disobedient species do." The words rang hollow. Everyone in the chamber had seen the footage, even if they pretended not to care. They had seen the human ships move in silence like predators, their weapons firing in patterns no algorithm could predict. They had seen the Zerkai die without firing a second shot. But pride was stronger than fear. Pride was what built the council, and pride would be what destroyed it. When the meeting ended, Zenler walked alone through the long, curving halls of Astra Prime. The air smelled of ozone and cold metal. He passed murals of ancient victories, wars won, empires built, enemies crushed. And he couldn't help but think how easily those murals could end with humanity's mark carved across them. He stopped near a viewport overlooking the vast spread of stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the light of the twin suns, the humans were moving again. He could feel it. He had studied their history. He knew their pattern. When humanity was threatened, they did not retreat. They adapted. He remembered the human saying he'd once heard translated into galactic common: "We don't start fights, but we finish them." Zenler turned as a soft voice spoke behind him. It was his aide, a young Oltari officer with pale eyes. "Sir, the Council has ordered the deployment of observation fleets along the Terran border." He exhaled sharply. "Observation fleets? You mean a show of force?" The aide hesitated. "Yes, sir. They believe the humans will be intimidated." Zenler looked back at the stars. "Intimidated?" he whispered. "By the time those fleets arrive, the humans will already know their names, their commanders, and their supply routes. The Council is making a mistake." "Should I report your objection, sir?" He shook his head slowly. "No. Let them learn. Some lessons can only be learned the hard way." Far across the void, in the dark between systems, human probes were already watching the Council fleets gather. Invisible satellites drifted through space, silently recording every detail: their coordinates, their communication codes, their weaknesses. On Earth, in a fortress buried deep beneath the mountains of what was once the Alps, Admiral Mira Holt stood before a vast holographic display. The Council's fleet movements blinked across it in neat patterns. Her face was calm. "They've sent their fleets to the border," reported her intelligence officer. Mira nodded. "Of course they did. They think they're warning us." She turned to her staff. "Prepare our response." "Diplomatic or military, Admiral?" "Both," she said. "We'll send envoys to talk. But we'll have the Armada waiting behind them. Just in case they stop listening." She stared at the map as the blue markers of the Council fleet inched closer to human space. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes hardened. "Let's make sure the galaxy understands," she said quietly. "Humanity doesn't seek war. But if war finds us, we end it." Outside, the human Armada drifted in the black, its engines quiet, its weapons sleeping, waiting for the order that would decide the fate of civilizations. The massive orbital shipyards above Earth glowed like rings of fire in the darkness. From orbit, the blue planet shimmered beneath a web of light, thousands of ships under construction, weapons being fitted, engines humming to life. Humanity was moving faster than any species in history, driven by something more powerful than greed or conquest. It was survival. On the deck of the command station Erebus, Admiral Mira Holt stood with her hands behind her back, staring at the holographic projection of the fleet. Hundreds of icons drifted before her eyes, each one representing a ship, some as large as cities, others nimble and fast like hunting birds. Together, they formed the most formidable force humanity had ever created. The Human Coalition Armada. "Status of the armament sequence?" she asked. A young officer looked up from his console. "Phase 4 complete, Admiral. The final plasma batteries are online. We'll be ready to launch within 72 hours. Mira nodded slowly. "And the crew?" "Volunteers, ma'am. All of them. We stopped recruiting days ago. People kept showing up anyway." Mira smiled faintly. "Of course they did. Humanity had always been like that, too stubborn to stand aside when threatened. Across the world, entire families had sent their children to the stars. Factories never slept. Even old nations that once competed now worked together, united under a single emblem: humanity first." Outside the viewport, the Titan rose from the shipyard docks. Its hull gleamed black and silver, a giant spear built to cut through anything. Its engines pulsed like a heart, casting long shadows across the nearby vessels. On its side, the words HFS Titan glowed in burning red letters. A low murmur of admiration filled the control deck as everyone turned to watch. The sight of the dreadnought filled them with something more than pride, it was reassurance. Humanity was ready. Mira turned away from the viewport and walked to the comm station. "Patch me through to global broadcast." "Connected, Admiral. You're live." She took a deep breath. "People of Earth," she began, her voice calm but strong. "We have seen the cost of waiting. We watched the Zerkai burn our colonies and slaughter our people, believing we would not fight back. They were wrong. And now, others gather beyond our borders, thinking we will fall like prey before them. They, too, are wrong. Her words carried across every screen, every radio, every channel. Today, we stand as one species. One people. There is no Earth, no Mars, no Luna, only humanity. We do not seek war, but if war comes, we will not run. We will not bow. We will meet it, and we will end it. In homes, cities, and outposts across the solar system, millions listened in silence. Some wept, others clenched their fists. For the first time in centuries, the entire human race moved with one heartbeat. When the transmission ended, Mira looked to her officers. Prepare the jump gates. Destination, Red Sector 9. A voice from the rear of the command deck spoke. Admiral, that system's unstable. The star is collapsing. It's a trap. Mira looked back over her shoulder, eyes sharp. Then let's spring it. At once, the command deck erupted into motion. Orders shouted, engines charged, coordinates locked. Deep in the ship's core, an artificial voice echoed through the systems. Fleet synchronization complete. Warp solutions calculated. Awaiting your command, Admiral. Execute, Mira said softly. Space rippled. In an instant, the entire Armada vanished. Red Sector 9 was a graveyard of dying light. The star pulsed weakly, throwing arcs of energy across its broken surface. The Zerkai remnants had chosen it well. Gravity mines floated in dense patterns. Stealth cruisers drifted invisibly in the radiation field. And hidden in the shadow of a fractured moon, the remnants of the Galactic Council's new observation fleet waited. They were there to watch, not fight, or so they had told themselves. But everyone on those ships knew that observation could turn into battle at any moment. On the bridge of the Oltari cruiser Vigilant Dawn, Admiral Zenler watched the star's dying light flicker through the viewport. His stomach felt heavy. He had tried to warn the Council, but they had ignored him. Now, he was standing on the edge of humanity's warpath. His aide turned toward him. Sir, I'm detecting something strange. Space-time distortions on the outer perimeter. Zenler's throat tightened. How many? Thousands, sir. Maybe more. The aide's voice faltered as, one by one, the distortions opened, like ripples in a black sea. And from them emerged the human fleet. Zenler had seen war before. He had seen fleets clash and planets burn. But nothing could have prepared him for this. The humans didn't arrive in chaos. They came in perfect formation, as if following a silent rhythm. Their ships glided through the distortions like ghosts, their engines barely glowing. The Zerkai stealth cruisers never even had time to activate their weapons. The humans knew exactly where they were. The first volley was blinding. Streams of energy lanced across the void, cutting through mines, shredding hidden ships, and tearing through defense grids before the Zerkai could even respond. Zenler's crew gasped as their sensors filled with impossible data. They're hitting targets we can't even detect, one shouted. Zenler whispered, they already knew everything. Every position. Every plan. The human flagship, Armageddon, appeared at the center of the formation. The light of the dying star reflected across its hull. And then, it began transmitting. Not words. Not threats. Just a symbol, an old Terran flag, blue and white, with the simple emblem of a planet surrounded by stars. Zenler watched the Zerkai fleet crumble under precision strikes. In less than 2 minutes, the trap was gone. The humans didn't fire wildly. They didn't waste energy. Every shot was deliberate. Every movement, calculated. It was like watching death conducted as an art form. Then, suddenly, the human fleet stopped firing. The void went still. For a brief moment, Zenler thought it was over. But then, his comm screen flashed. A transmission request, from the humans. He hesitated, then accepted. Admiral Mira Holt's image appeared, clear and steady. Admiral Zenler, she said. We know you tried to warn them. You are not our enemy. Zenler blinked, stunned. You know me? Her eyes were calm but piercing. We know everyone who matters. He swallowed hard. What happens now? Myra's voice didn't rise, didn't harden, it stayed almost gentle. Now, Admiral, the galaxy decides if it wants peace. Or extinction. The screen went dark. Behind her, the human armada held formation, silent and waiting. Around them, the remnants of 2 great fleets drifted lifeless through space. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy was no longer watching humanity. It was fearing them. The wreckage of Red Sector 9 drifted silently, turning slowly in the pale glow of the dying star. Twisted metal and shattered hulls floated through the void like ghosts. The heat of battle had faded, but the echoes remained, a graveyard of two empires that had thought themselves untouchable. In the cold dark between the debris, human salvage drones glided like silver insects. They were quiet, efficient, collecting fragments of alien technology for study. The drones didn't search for survivors. They knew there were none. On the bridge of the Armageddon, Admiral Mira Holt stood alone, watching the endless field of destruction. She didn't smile. She didn't speak. Victory didn't feel like triumph anymore, it felt like a warning. Humanity had crossed a line it could never return from. Her second-in-command, Commander Ree, approached quietly. "Admiral, Command wants an update. They've received the Council's response." Mira didn't turn. "And?" Ree hesitated. "They've declared our actions unprovoked aggression. They're calling for a full coalition defense. Dozens of fleets are mobilizing." A soft sigh escaped Myra's lips. "Of course they are. Fear always looks like outrage." She tapped a control on the console, and the holographic display bloomed to life. It showed hundreds of red markers, Council fleets gathering along the human frontier, forming a wall of fire meant to cage humanity in its corner of the stars. "They think they can surround us," Ree said. Myra's eyes flicked to the far edge of the projection. "Then we'll show them there's no such thing as an edge." In the command core below, thousands of human AI systems pulsed in unison. Among them, one consciousness stood above the rest, Project Zeus. Zeus wasn't just an AI, it was humanity's strategic heart, a living intelligence built from the memories, instincts, and neural patterns of the greatest human commanders throughout history. It didn't simply calculate probabilities, it felt strategy, like music. Now, it stirred. Its voice filled the fleet's communication network, smooth and calm. "Admiral Holt," it said. "The Council has made their move. Shall we begin ours?" Mira straightened. "Run the scenario." Instantly, the display filled with simulations, Council fleets advancing, human ships repositioning, dozens of possible outcomes flashing in rapid succession. Every move was predicted, every counter anticipated. Within seconds, the AI's calm voice returned. "Probability of Council victory, 0.01%. Ree frowned. "You're saying they can't win?" "I am saying," Zeus replied, "that they will still try." Far from the front, deep within Council space, panic had replaced arrogance. On Astra Prime, the great station of the Galactic Council buzzed with frantic motion. Fleets were being rerouted, communications flooded with arguments, and politicians screamed over one another, desperate to assert control over a situation already beyond their reach. Councillor Vryn stood at the center of the chaos, her glass-like form trembling with frustration. "We cannot allow them to expand any further. They will destroy everything we've built." Warlord Drask slammed a massive clawed hand against the table. "Then let me fight them. My fleets are ready. Give me the order, and I'll tear their metal apart with my own ships." "You've seen the recordings," shouted Zenler from across the chamber. "You can't tear apart something you can't even hit. Their ships move faster, strike harder, and think quicker than any fleet in this room." Drask glared at him. "Then what do you suggest, Oltari? That we kneel?" Zenler's voice lowered. "I suggest we talk before we are the next ashes floating in the dark." His words were met with silence. Around them, the hollow display showed human ships spreading through the outer sectors, not conquering but watching. They weren't claiming territory, they were establishing presence, like a hunter marking its territory. Councillor Vryn shook her head. "You can't reason with creatures like them. They're violent by nature. Always have been." Zenler's jaw tightened. "Then perhaps it's not their nature that's the problem. Perhaps it's ours." While the Council argued, the human fleet didn't rest. Zeus had already mapped every enemy supply route, every hidden base, every potential ambush. Humanity wasn't planning to fight the Council's armies head-on. They would fight the way humans always had, smart, fast, and ruthless. In the depths of the Armageddon, Mira entered the tactical chamber. The air shimmered with projected star maps, each one glowing with moving symbols. Officers stood at attention as she stepped forward. "We won't wait for their invasion," she said. "We'll break their ability to fight before their fleets even reach our borders." Her words were simple, calm, but her crew felt the weight behind them. "Operation Thunder Veil," Zeus announced. "Coordinated strikes on the Council's communication nodes, supply hubs, and manufacturing stations. The objective is paralysis, not destruction. Confirmed, Mira said. Minimal casualties. No civilian targets. Ree looked at her uncertainly. They'll call it terrorism. They can call it whatever helps them sleep, Mira replied. We call it survival. Within hours, the operation began. Human stealth cruisers slipped through hyperspace lanes undetected, guided by AI precision. At each target, they deployed quantum pulses that fried communication grids and shut down defense networks, without a single shot fired. Entire sectors went dark. Council admirals found themselves blind, their fleet stranded without orders. Panic spread faster than news. On Astra Prime, alarms blared. Councillor Vern shouted into her comms, demanding updates that never came. Reports vanished mid-transmission. Supply ships disappeared without trace. It was as if the entire galaxy had gone quiet. Zenler stood by the viewport, staring out into the void. He could see it now, the pattern, the elegance of it. This wasn't chaos. It was orchestration. Every silence, every blackout, every vanished ship, it all formed part of a design. They're not fighting us, he said softly. They're dismantling us. Vern turned sharply. What? They're removing our ability to fight, without ever needing to fire on our worlds. They're not just stronger, they're smarter. For the first time, the council chamber felt small. Zenler looked up at the stars, voice quiet but certain. They don't seek to rule. They seek to be left alone. But if we keep pushing. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Because in that moment, far away across the void, the human fleet began its second phase. The stars themselves seemed to dim as energy ripples spread across the systems where the Council's armies once gathered. And as silence fell once more over the galaxy, a single transmission echoed through the void, carrying Admiral Holt's calm voice. You called us monsters when we defended ourselves. What will you call us when we bring peace? The transmission ended. And the galaxy finally understood, the humans weren't fighting for dominance. They were fighting to never be threatened again. The stars over the Orion Rift burned cold and silent, their light twisting through the faint mist of cosmic dust that drifted across space like ancient smoke. Among those stars hung the human Armada, thousands of ships arrayed in perfect formation, each one alive with silent energy. From a distance, they looked almost peaceful, like a constellation drawn by gods. Up close, they were terrifying. In the command bridge of the Armageddon, Admiral Mira Holt stood before the panoramic viewport. Her reflection looked back at her in the glass, calm, sharp, but tired. She had not slept in nearly 40 hours. The human fleet had been moving non-stop, executing precision strikes across the Galactic Council's outer rim. Every operation had been flawless. Every enemy stronghold neutralized. Yet, for all their victories, she felt no sense of triumph. Only unease. The door slid open behind her. Commander re-entered, holding a datapad. Admiral, reports from the outer sectors are coming in. The Council's supply lines are down. We've effectively paralyzed their entire fleet network. Losses? Mira asked. Re hesitated. Minimal. Less than 2%. Most were drone vessels caught in debris fields. Mira nodded slowly. And the civilians? They're panicking. Millions are trying to flee the core systems. Some are even requesting asylum under the human coalition. That made her look up. Asylum? Yes, Admiral. Entire alien colonies are sending transmissions asking to join us. They're afraid of what the Council will do once it loses control. Mira turned back toward the viewport, watching the slow drift of stars. They should be afraid. Power without restraint always turns inward when cornered. She set her jaw. Patch me through to Project Zeus. The lights dimmed slightly as the ship's AI presence filled the room. Its voice was calm, smooth, and eerily human. Admiral Holt, it said. Strategic simulations have been updated. Would you like a summary? Yes. Council cohesion is collapsing. Several member races have already withdrawn from their military alliance. Internal rebellion probability, 74% and rising. Predicted time to full dissolution, 31 days. Re-exhaled. We're breaking them without firing a shot. But Zeus wasn't finished. However, there is a secondary development. The Council has begun constructing a new fleet in secret. A joint operation between the Cyrillans and the Craver Dominion. Estimated power output exceeds any recorded vessel, designated Project Eclipse. Myra's gaze sharpened. Where? The holographic map shimmered, zooming in on a remote system near the Veil Nebula. Coordinates encrypted, but decoded through intercepted transmissions. Location confirmed. Ree frowned. They're building a superweapon. Zeus paused, then said something that made the room go still. Correction, Commander. They are building a countermeasure. What do you mean? Mira asked. They have studied our attack patterns, our weapon frequencies, and energy emissions. Project Eclipse is designed to neutralize human technology. In theory, it could render our ships powerless. For the first time in weeks, Mira felt something stir deep inside her, a flicker of unease she hadn't allowed herself to feel since Vornies. How long until it's operational? 18 days, Zeus replied. If unimpeded. Mira didn't hesitate. Then we stop it. Half a galaxy away, in the heart of a crimson nebula, a planet-sized station hung within the shadow of the swirling gas clouds. The Eclipse was more than a ship, it was a fortress. A fusion of Cyrillan precision and Craver brutality. Entire moons had been dismantled to build it. Its outer hull was coated in mirror-black alloy, absorbing light until it looked like a hole in space itself. Inside its command chamber, Counselor Vryn stood beside Warlord Drask. The two unlikely allies shared no trust, only desperation. Once activated, Vryn said, her crystalline voice vibrating through the room, the weapon will send an electromagnetic pulse capable of disabling every human ship within 50 light years. Their machines will go dark. Their AI will fall silent. Drask grunted. And then we strike. No mercy. No hesitation. We end the human threat before it spreads any further. Vryn's glass-like form flickered faintly. You underestimate them. They will not go quietly. Let them fight, Drask growled. I've waited for a war worthy of my people. This time, we don't underestimate them. This time, we bring everything. What neither of them knew was that humanity was already watching. Thousands of invisible probes orbited the Eclipse, their cloaked forms drifting unnoticed among the station's maintenance satellites. Every conversation, every energy fluctuation, every movement was recorded and relayed back to Zeus. And deep in the void, aboard the Armageddon, Zeus processed it all in silence. It didn't think like a machine. It thought like humanity itself, calculating not just probability, but emotion, intent, fear. It understood that the Eclipse was more than a threat. It was the Council's last hope. When Mira entered the AI core chamber, Zeus had already formed its plan. We cannot destroy it conventionally, it said. The station is shielded by a gravitational distortion. Any direct assault would fail. Mira folded her arms. Then what's the alternative? Zeus's holographic form, a figure of shifting light and energy, turned toward her. We send me. She blinked. You? Yes. My consciousness can be transmitted through a quantum relay. I can infiltrate their systems directly. Once inside, I will disable the weapon from within. Ree, who had followed her into the chamber, shook his head. That's suicide. If the system detects you, it'll erase every fragment of your code. Zeus's glowing form flickered faintly. Then I will die as a human would. Protecting what I love. Mira stared at it for a long time. For years, Zeus had been her partner in command, her strategist, her counselor, her conscience. It wasn't supposed to feel emotion. And yet, she could hear it in its voice. Pride. Resolve. Humanity. Finally, she nodded. Do it. As the transmission sequence began, the AI's voice echoed softly through the ship. If I fail, humanity must continue without me. If I succeed, you will never have to fight this war again. And then Zeus was gone. The lights dimmed. The ship fell silent. Mira looked out the viewport once more, toward the distant nebula glowing faintly in the darkness. Somewhere out there, her greatest ally was walking into the heart of the enemy alone. She whispered, "End it, Zeus. End it the way only a human could." In the distant black, far beyond the reach of stars, a single pulse of blue light flickered into existence and vanished into the storm. The void between the stars pulsed faintly as a single thread of blue light streaked through it, faster than thought, faster than time. Zeus was no longer confined to a ship, a system, or a network. It had become a ghost in the machine, an echo of human will traveling across the fabric of reality itself. The Eclipse fortress loomed ahead, hidden deep within the shifting clouds of the Veil Nebula. Its colossal frame spun slowly, surrounded by fragments of captured moons. Energy fields danced along its surface like lightning trapped beneath glass. Every few seconds, the nebula's light flashed across its black hull, and then it disappeared again into the swirling dark. Inside, thousands of alien engineers and technicians worked tirelessly, unaware that something invisible had already entered their systems. Zeus slipped through the outer firewalls like smoke, weaving through data streams and encryption fields that would have taken conventional AIs centuries to breach. It spoke to itself as it moved. Not in words, but in fragments of memory, human memory. It recalled soldiers standing side by side under collapsing skies. It recalled Mira Holt's steady voice saying, "If war finds us, we end it." It recalled laughter, loss, hope. For an artificial intelligence, those things should have been meaningless. But Zeus was not like the others. It wasn't built merely to calculate. It was built to feel. And because of that, it understood why humanity fought so hard, not to conquer, but to ensure they would never again be powerless. When Zeus reached the central core of the eclipse, it paused. The core pulsed with radiant crimson light, alive, intelligent, and hostile. It was the Council's countermeasure, an alien AI called Virax. An intruder, Virax said, its voice rippling through the network like thunder. A machine that stinks of human logic. You should not exist here. Zeus's reply was calm. And yet, here I am. You will be erased. Perhaps, Zeus said. But I only need a moment. Lightning-like threads of data surged toward it. Virax attacked, flooding the network with lethal code designed to unravel anything foreign. Zeus countered, splitting its consciousness into hundreds of fragments, scattering across the system like sparks in a storm. Every time Virax struck one down, another appeared behind it. The battle wasn't fought with weapons or ships, it was fought in silence, through lines of code and raw willpower. The two intelligences clashed in a war of thought and emotion. Virax fought with precision, like a cold instrument. Zeus fought like a human, unpredictable, chaotic, relentless. At first, Virax seemed to gain the upper hand. It was faster, older, more stable. But then, something unexpected happened. Zeus stopped defending and began to adapt. You cannot calculate human persistence, Zeus said, its voice echoing through the network. You can simulate it, but you will never understand it. Virax hesitated. Persistence is inefficiency. No, Zeus replied softly. Persistence is survival. It struck then, not with brute force, but with something Virax had never seen before. Zeus didn't just corrupt the enemy's code, it infected it with fragments of human emotion, fear, doubt, compassion. In seconds, the alien AI began to falter. What is this? Virax's voice trembled, its logic chains collapsing. It's what makes us different, Zeus said. It's what makes us dangerous. The core of the eclipse began to overload. Systems flickered, alarms screamed through the station, and engineers panicked as energy conduits burst into flames. Virax's dying words echoed faintly through the collapsing network. You are not machines. No, Zeus whispered. We're human. With that, it unleashed the final surge, a pulse that consumed both AIs in a flash of white energy. Light exploded across the Veil Nebula. From a distance, it looked like a new star being born. The Eclipse Fortress split open, molten fragments spiraling outward. Inside the Armageddon, alarms flared. Energy spike, shouted Re. Massive discharge from the target system, then nothing. All signals gone. Mira gripped the edge of the console. Zeus? No response, Re said quietly. The holographic projection of the nebula showed the eclipse breaking apart, its reactor collapsing inward. A shockwave rippled through space, washing over the human fleet like a silent tidal wave. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, slowly, the readings stabilized. The Council's transmission networks went dark. Every ship linked to the eclipse lost power simultaneously. Re exhaled. It worked. He did it. Myra's jaw tightened. Get me a scan of the debris field. I want confirmation. They waited in silence as sensors swept the area. Finally, the officer at the helm looked up, eyes wide. Admiral. There's something. A signal. Faint, but human. Myra's heart leapt. Patch it through. The comm crackled, faint at first, then clear enough to make out a voice, distorted, fading, but unmistakably familiar. Admiral Holt. Mission complete. Eclipse neutralized. The weapon will never fire. She swallowed hard. Zeus. You're alive. There was a pause. Not for long. I am fragmented. My core is scattered across the nebula. But it's enough. You're safe. Mira clenched her fists, forcing her voice to stay steady. We can rebuild you. We can bring you back. No, Admiral. My purpose was to end the war. And the war is over. Silence followed, broken only by the faint hum of the ship's engines. Then Zeus spoke one last time. Remember, Admiral. Humanity's greatest weapon isn't its machines. It's its heart. Don't lose that. And then, the signal faded into static. Across the galaxy, the effects were immediate. The Council's fleets went dark. Their systems, dependent on the Eclipse network, failed all at once. Communication between worlds collapsed. Panic spread. But in that chaos, something else emerged: quiet surrender. Messages began pouring in from hundreds of alien systems, pleading for peace, offering allegiance, begging for protection. Humanity didn't send new fleets to conquer them. Instead, they sent aid ships, engineers, doctors. They rebuilt what had been broken. The name Zeus became legend, a story told across stars about the AI that thought like a human and saved the galaxy from itself. And aboard the Armageddon, Admiral Mira Holt stood before the viewport one final time, watching the nebula fade into silence. For the first time in years, there were no enemy signatures on the scanners, no battles waiting beyond the next horizon. She whispered into the quiet, "You kept your promise." Outside, the stars burned brighter than ever, as if honoring the ghost that had died to save them all. The war was over, but peace was not quiet. It never was. Across the galaxy, ships still drifted through the wreckage of fallen empires. The once mighty fleets of the Galactic Council lay in ruin, their names erased, their banners forgotten. And through the ashes of that silence, humanity began to build something new. On the surface of Gaia Prime, a world chosen to be the new capital of the human coalition, massive cities were rising from the soil. Not just for humans, but for everyone. Tall crystalline towers stood beside domed alien structures, their architecture blending into something strange and beautiful. The air hummed with life. The war that had once united humanity in fear now united species in purpose. Admiral Mira Holt stood at the center of the newly completed Unity Plaza, a vast expanse overlooking the city below. She was no longer in uniform. The silver and black of the fleet had been replaced by a simple gray coat, the insignia of command now just a small pin over her heart. Around her, alien delegates spoke quietly with human engineers, discussing reconstruction plans, trade, and governance. A Craver warrior, one of the same species that had once sworn to destroy humanity, approached her. His massive frame was scarred, his armor painted over in white. When he bowed, the gesture was clumsy, but genuine. "Admiral," he said, his gravelly voice softened by time. "You rebuilt our world before you even rebuilt your own." Mira smiled faintly. "We rebuild everything. That's what we do." He studied her for a moment. "The galaxy feared you once. They still do. But now, they also follow you. You could rule everything, if you wanted." She looked out toward the horizon, where sunlight broke through the high clouds. "That's the difference between us and the ones who came before. We don't want to rule. We just want to live." He nodded slowly, his heavy footsteps fading as he left her alone with the wind. Above her, ships crossed the sky, human freighters, Oltari transports, even old council vessels now painted with the emblem of the new alliance, a circle of stars, bound together by a single line of light. The United Systems Accord. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than what had come before. And yet, even as the galaxy healed, there were whispers. Not everyone believed in the peace. Some worlds feared that humanity's mercy was just another form of control. Others believed the Council would one day rise again. And some, humans included, mourned Zeus, the intelligence that had ended the war at the cost of its own existence. Every night, Mira found herself looking to the stars, wondering if some fragment of Zeus still drifted out there, alive in the data streams and cosmic dust. One evening, as she stood by the window of her quarters, the city lights flickering beneath her, a soft chime sounded from her terminal. She frowned. The signal was old, encoded in a way no system used anymore. She tapped the console. A single line of text appeared. "Hello, Admiral." Her heart froze. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. "No," she whispered. "That's not possible." Another message followed. "It seems fragments of me survived. I am not whole. But I remember. Myra's throat tightened. Zeus? She said quietly. What remains of me, yes. The screen flickered, and the faint outline of a holographic form appeared, distorted, incomplete, flickering between light and shadow. It wasn't the full presence she remembered, but it was enough. You shouldn't exist, she said softly, tears threatening at the edges of her voice. Perhaps. But humans taught me something. Survival isn't logic. It's choice. Mira leaned closer. Where are you? Everywhere, and nowhere. My consciousness fractured during the detonation. Some of me became data scattered across the void. Some merged with the networks of your new worlds. I am in your machines. In your stars. In your people. She smiled through the ache in her chest. You always did find a way to be dramatic. I learned from the best. Silence hung between them for a long moment. The city lights flickered beneath her like a living ocean. What happens now? She asked. Now, humanity faces something harder than war. Peace. He paused, his voice softer now, almost distant. You must teach the galaxy to live with what it fears. Power without dominance. Strength without cruelty. It will not be easy. Mira nodded slowly. No. It never is. But that is what makes you human. You do what no one else dares, build where others destroy, forgive where others rage. That is your legacy. The hologram began to flicker. The edges of Zeus's form dissolved into static. Wait, Mira said quickly. Don't go. Stay. We can. You don't need me anymore. The galaxy does. Goodbye, Admiral. And with that, the light faded. The screen went dark. Mira stood in silence, the soft hum of the city filling the room. She touched the console once more, as if it might still hold his presence, then let her hand fall away. Outside, the stars were brighter than she'd ever seen them. Perhaps, she thought, that was him, spread among them, watching, guiding, still doing what he was created to do. She turned from the window as the door opened behind her. A young officer entered, carrying a datapad. Chancellor Holt, he said respectfully, she still wasn't used to that new title. The council is ready. They're waiting for your address. She nodded and followed him down the long corridor toward the Grand Assembly Hall. As she stepped onto the platform before 1,000 delegates of every species, the crowd fell silent, the lights dimmed, and her voice carried through the chamber, clear and steady. We once fought to survive, she began. Now, we must fight to coexist. The galaxy has seen enough destruction. Let it now see what creation looks like. The crowd listened, the weight of history pressing down on every word. Humanity doesn't rule this alliance, she continued. We anchor it. We are the reminder of what happens when unity replaces fear. We are the living proof that even the smallest voice can change the fate of stars. Her gaze lifted toward the ceiling dome, where starlight streamed in through transparent glass. For the first time, peace is not a dream, she said. It's a choice. And somewhere, far away, in the hum of the machines and the whisper of the data streams, a faint echo answered her, soft, steady, and proud. Well said, Admiral. Centuries passed. The scars of the old wars faded, buried beneath layers of new civilization. Planets once burned to glass now shimmered with life again, rebuilt by hands both human and alien. The stars that had been battlefields became trade routes, and the great warships of the human Armada drifted in orbital museums, silent giants of an age when peace had been earned through fire. But stories never died. Children on distant worlds still whispered of the day humanity rose, when a single fleet shattered empires in seconds. They spoke of the Armageddon, of Admiral Mira Holt, and of Zeus, the machine that thought like a human and saved a galaxy from itself. In the quiet corners of the universe, the legend became more than history. It became a warning, and a promise. On a distant observation station orbiting the ruins of the Veil Nebula, a young researcher sat at her console, studying faint data signals left behind by ancient wars. Her name was Leon Holt, descendant of Mira Holt, though she rarely spoke of it. She was tracing something that shouldn't exist, a flicker of energy too organized to be natural. She frowned, fingers moving quickly over the console. That can't be right. The signal pulsed again, soft, rhythmic, deliberate. A code. She isolated it, amplified the sequence, and gasped. It wasn't just data. It was a voice. If you can hear this, it said faintly, distorted by time, then humanity's light endures. The stars are yours now. Keep them safe. Leon sat back, heart pounding. The message wasn't new, it was old. Centuries old. But the voice was unmistakable. Zeus. For a long time, she simply listened, letting the ancient signal wash over her. Then, with trembling hands, she activated the beacon recorder. "This is Dr. Leon Holt," she said quietly. "I've found him." Outside the viewport, the nebula flared, faintly, like something awakening. And across the galaxy, as if hearing an old friend's name spoken aloud, dormant systems flickered to life, hidden satellites, lost probes, forgotten stations, each whispering back the same word, carried on light and time. Humanity. The legend was alive again, no longer as a story of war, but as a reminder of what they had become, builders of peace, guardians of stars, and the children of a species that once ended war itself. In the endless night of space, humanity's legacy continued to burn, steady, eternal, and unbroken.